Okay, hello everyone. So WNCC welcomes you to this session on open source software and introduction. And before the session starts, we have a few announcements. First of all, WNCC has revamped its website, and the link is present on the site. So you can check it out for SOC results, TSS results, and also we have launched a Discord server, which will be our official point of communication from now on. And in the Discord server, there will be external opportunities posted, announcement for events. Then we'll have discussions and everything. So make sure to join the server. The link is present on the website. And yeah, and uh, so about this sessions, we all know that in October we have the Hacktober Fest, and then the Google Summer of Code is coming up, and a lot of stuff is happening related to open source. And to let us know about the open source softwares, we have three previous year GSOC mentees. So I welcome them, and if you could please give your introductions. So Abhijit.
Hello everyone, I am Abhijit, Mechanical 30, and I had worked with as worked as a Google Summer of Code student with Zulip this year.
Yeah,
Over to
so
you, Siddharth.
everyone, I'm Siddharth. I'm also a 30 in mechanical, and I had done my GSOC in Simpai organization this year, and I didn't have any exposure with open source before that, but I've continued contributing even after GSOC. Vikram.
Hi, I'm Vikram. I'm also a Mech 30. I was a GSOC student with BRL card last year.
All right then. So I'll start off. So firstly, you guys would be wondering like, what is open source software to begin with? So firstly, what is this word source? So source code refers to like the original code written by the developers of the software. It is the code which you generally can't see and what makes the application run behind whatever code that is being executed so that the software can run. So in open source, the speciality is like anyone can look at and redistribute the source code. So for example, if you look at some video games, like online video games, the source code won't be public because you don't want people exploiting the game and like hacking the game or cheating their scores, etc. But in open source, all of the code is public to you. You can read each and every line of the code. You can modify it, and you can also make your own version of the code and redistribute that. So some famous examples that you guys might be knowing are Linux, the entire Linux kernel, all the Ubuntu and other distributions, Apache HTTP servers, Mozilla Firefox, and the Mozilla organization, OpenVPN, which we use in Institute to connect to the network, and also Git itself. So all of these are open source. So and some of these are like Linux is one of the most successful softwares of all time. Like it is used in mobiles and even in rockets and etc. So and more than 90% of all software is open source. So you can see like it's a very big part of the software industry, and there might you might have also heard of NumPy. So NumPy is also an open source organization, and there are many more, but these are just a few to name. So, okay, so why is it so famous and like why should people be a part of this? So, firstly, you can obviously hone your development and programming skills. So, you're challenging real life problems and making an actual product. Like all of these repos, these are used by millions of people. NumPy is used by so many people, like almost everyone who uses Python has used or heard of NumPy sometime. So, if you change some line of code in NumPy and choose to contribute, you'll be impacting so many millions of people. So, and for being able to make changes to that, you can imagine that like your development skills and programming skills need to be very top tier or like industry standard. So that is a very big plus point, and everyone over there is sort of like a community. See all the contributors and all. So this is all voluntary work. Generally, open source softwares these aren't jobs. Like being an open source developer is not a job. because again, like all the code is free and everything. So uh, there isn't really any direct monetary gain that they get. So like NumPy developers don't get money from developing or releasing NumPy, but they do get through other uh, things that we can talk about later. But yeah, so like all the community, like all the members are really helpful, and you can become a part of this community. So, and all of them are very enthusiastic about coding. They're from diverse backgrounds. They're from all over different parts of the world. Some are professors. Even like many people in my organization, they are professors at different universities. So you can get a good chance to network. And of course, the code is one of the highest standards written because it's open. So like anyone can look at your code and comment on it. So you want to have it as clean as possible, or else like people will see and say like, oh, this is so bad code. So it is well designed, well documented, and also supported. Like if you get any bugs and all, they fix it generally. And of course, like I said, it's voluntary, so you can work at your own rules. Like if you want to contribute one day, you can. If you don't want to, you're feeling bad, don't contribute for a week. Like it's completely up to you and how much time you want to give. So these are some programs about open source. So of course, GSOC is the most famous, which everyone's heard about. Google Summer of Code. Apart from this, there is Google Season of Docs also. So this is Season of Docs is about documentation. So like I said, like all the open source code are generally very well documented, but this also requires a lot of work. So so Google even has this program which helps promote documentation. Then there is this MLH fellowship and Hacktoberfest. So briefly about Hacktoberfest, like it is again an initiative to promote open source. So what you can do is, so what you have to do in this is, if you submit 4 successful pull requests, we'll talk about what pull requests are a bit down the line. So if you submit 4 successful pull requests to any organization, they will send you a T-shirt for free. They will ship it anywhere in the world. So that is sort of a swag thing that you can have, that uh, to show off to your friends and people that you contributed to open source. So more you can. So we'll be going in GSOC about GSOC in depth, and the others you can Google. So firstly, how do you start? So let's start. How do you start contributing to open source? And what are some of the terms I mentioned earlier, like pull requests and issues and all? So what are they exactly? So just going over there really quickly, because I think many people have already know GitHub from the sessions WNCC has connected and all conducted and all. So issue or bug is like any error in the code. Like if you give some input to the code and it's not behaving like you want to, that's an error. Like for example, if in NumPy I'm trying to multiply 2 matrices, but they're not giving the correct result, that's a bug. That particular example is a bug. Those two that particular example is a bug. So anything like this could be a bug, and even documentation errors could be a bug. Like if there is a typo in the documentation, there is a grammatical error, even that can classify as a bug. So any unexpected behavior or thing is a bug. A commit is basically a sort of, yeah, like a blob of changes made to the code. So when you put code into the code base, you make it in the form of commits. So like one commit will send over some particular changes to the code, another commit will send over some changes, and these commits stack on top of each other, finally to like make the code base. And the pull request. So the pull request is how you get the commits into the code base. Like you've made some commits, but how do you actually get it into the code base? So for example, if you're trying to implement a new feature, so you'll have many commits in that, like maybe implementing a sub part of it, and then so on and so forth. And so this way, like a combination of all of that will give you a pull request. And to ensure that the pull request is up to the standards, you aren't just giving random junk code to be pushed into the code base. Like if anyone could push any code, like NumPy and all would just break. So that's why there are code reviews where the developers or like people who know the code base, they go over what code you've written and they give you suggestions. Like if you have made some logical error, or if your code can be optimized, if you haven't followed the standards, etc. They tell you in the code review that please make these changes. And once you've addressed these, your pull request gets into the code base. Okay, so those were just some basic terms. Like even just getting a very high level understanding of it is fine for now. So now let's start about GSOC. So what exactly is Google Summer of Code? So the goal of this program is to like bring more student developers into contributing to open source software. So Google pays a stipend and other incentives, which I'll talk about, to get people starting with open source development, especially students. So in this, you'll be working in the summer over a 10-week coding period to implement a project with some open source organization, not with Google directly. You will be working with another open source organization. But there are some big organizations that come here, like Python, the Python Software Foundation itself comes here, Git comes here, Linux Foundation comes here, Mozilla comes, like, and Boost C++. Like if you've done C++, you've probably heard of that. Then Django, the web development framework. These type of organizations come, and you can do a project with these organizations, like implementing a new feature or something over this 10-week period. So firstly, again, so like for you guys to get to know more about GSOC, we'll try to incentivize you. So we'll tell you the benefits of it. So of course you can gain professional experience. Like I told you, the open source software is like very well written. It's industry standard, and NumPy is used so much everywhere. Like it's even used it's used almost for everything because the code is so optimized. So to get to that level, like you really need to have like the state of the art code. So you get good experience working with the people who develop that and getting a chance to go over it and see it. Of course, you also get a sense of achievement. Like I'm sure a lot of you must have also heard like how prestigious GSOC is and all, and you yourself get a sense of achievement that hey, this is not my coursework. I didn't have any prior uh, prior like incentive to do it. Like it's not an incentive. If I just skip it, nothing happens. But I did it through my own motivation, and I implemented a full project, a new feature which will affect millions of people in actual starting from scratch. So you'll get that really amazing sense of achievement. You of course get to network. You can network with all other GSOC students. Like there is a GSOC students forum, so which is made every year, and it also has every past GSOC student. So you get their contacts, you can contact them, and there are also like other subgroups like all the Indian GSOC students and all, and yeah, like that. Of course, it's a great learning opportunity and the stipend. So you have to put in 175 hours over the 10 weeks, estimated, and so for that you get a $1,500 stipend, which roughly corresponds to 1.1 lakh Indian rupees. So that is a really good stipend especially for a second year uh, intern. Like there won't be many interns that rival this in the second year. So again, like it's a really great opportunity for you to get into open source development and in general, like hone your development skills and also learn a lot. So now selecting an organization. So for this, I'll be going over the GSOC website. So here you can see like this is the Google Summer of Code website, summerofcode.withgoogle.com. So here firstly like we have about organizations and all of this like help, and like Google itself tells you about how it works and all, and generally the timeline is here. Like you can see like all the timeline. This is for this year, by the way, 2021, which has already happened. So for the next year the timeline would come out around January or something. So here you can go over it later. I'll just go over the organizations currently. So here Google itself has a page about all the organizations that took part this year in 2021. So here you can see the full list of organizations. So there are 199 organizations, if I remember correctly. So yeah, like you can see like there are a lot. Like you can see here like the Python Software Foundation, of course, is there, and there are many other organizations. You can see Apache, Julia, the language, Linux, and all. So how do you? So these are what are called organizations. So how do you actually start picking an organization? Because that is where you'll be spending your summer, and you want that to be fun and also learn something. So firstly, you can just click on any organization and look at learn more and see projects. So here, uh, generally they have like a view projects, view ideas list, and chat also. Okay. So there is a mailing list here you can see. So you can look at the ideas list. This will you can look at the organization website. So using all of this information, you can get an overview of what the organization is doing, and the technologies tells you like what the code is written in and what you will be needing. So for example, Boost is purely C++. So here you can see all the C++ versions, and of course some topics like DSA and image processing and all. and here there is the mailing list, and here is the past the GSOC projects of this year. But this part is not relevant currently. Don't go over that. You'll just get intimidated and confused. So like this, there are many organizations. You can filter by topics also. So like you can maybe search for Python, and like you can get the organizations which have Python in them, like if that is what you know about. So you can filter it according to that. So what I would suggest is first make a list of organizations where you're interested in, and then after that you can start shortlisting. So I'll tell you how to shortlist. So yeah, so there are many criteria. Again, like I'll be going over many criteria that you can have to select an organization. So firstly, the most important is interest. Like in most of the organizations, the things that they will be doing, there is very little chance that you know it already. Very little chance. Because like even if you've implemented any project, even if you've already learned C++ or Python, if you're doing a project in that, you require some new knowledge. You can't just use like CS 101 course knowledge to make a generic C++ project. Like that is very difficult. So don't try to think too much about the advantage you already have. Uh, like if you already know Python, I'll only go for Python organizations. Don't get restricted like that. Just look at the what the organization does and is that interesting to you. For me, my organization was SymPy, which is like a symbolic mathematics library in Python. They do things like limits, integrals, like calculus, and also differential equations and all. So I like the maths courses in Insti, and I've always liked maths. So I thought like, why not try this out? Like I hadn't ever written a line of code in Python before uh, coming to SymPy. Like I did know C++, but I never knew Python. So that is not a barrier that you'll have. So just pick purely based on your interest. But apart from this, there are some things to look into mind, like the size of the organization. So if you look at this page again, there are some organizations that you might have heard of, like Audacity, some people might be knowing of, and Chromium, many people, almost everyone would be knowing, but very few people would be knowing of something like this, ELM tooling, or even, yeah, like this, Casbin. Like, if you look, like there are many smaller organizations that very little people know about. So since lesser people know about it, naturally like lesser people apply there also. So you have generally a better chance of selection there because you're competing with lesser people. So that is there because yeah, like in the big organizations, there will be many people who start contributing from now itself. So the competition is really fierce. Like when I was applying, I looked at the stats for Boost. 120 people had applied, and out of that, they selected 20. So like initially, if you go here, like you'll see like, oh, they have selected so many people, so I have a good chance. But actually, that's how much many more people apply also. And yeah, so you can just pick any smaller organizations, and although they have lesser people, lesser projects selected, they also have lesser competition. So yeah, that is one thing to keep in mind, like the size of the organization, like how much competition you'll be having. Because if you pick something like Boost, even if you start contributing now, there is no guarantee that you'll be selected because there are more people that are contributing from now, including you. But if you select a smaller organization, there will be almost no one contributing from now. So you'll have a very, very nice edge over them. Apart from that, there is, of course, like I said, these are the organizations that came in 2021. There is no guarantee that they'll come again in 2022, your year. It will only be released, the list will only be released in February. So, but you have to begin contributing now. So, how can that work? Like, so for that, these big organizations are good because Boost has been coming from 10, 15 years. SymPy, my organization, has also been coming from 10, 15 years. And there are some organizations like that which have been coming from a very, very long time. So it is almost guaranteed that they will come again, almost guaranteed, of course, not 100%. So you have a very good chance that they'll come and your efforts would not be completely in vain. So that is there. But yeah, like, so yeah, so there are these points to keep in mind. Like, yeah, so, and apart from this, so popularity, what I told, so active communication. So when you're starting out, like you would be knowing almost nothing, like because this is probably a lot of your first time contributing to open source and working on a project with like Git, GitHub, or any other version control. So you would be having many doubts like, how can I even get the code set up? How can I send my first pull request? What is the overall flow like? For that, you need an active communication channel. So, for example, if I just go to Simpai, and here you can see like there is a chat. So in the organization page itself. So if you open the chat, like it will take you to the Gitter website for the Simpai org. So over here, like you can see a lot of things like so you can see like people are asking for help, like I have opened an issue, please contribute and all. And people are replying, like people keep asking doubts and people keep replying. So here is a like a communication channel. So the developers over here reply to you. So that's that's really important so that you can always get your doubts answered and there are people always there to help you out. So of course, like I've told you so many criteria, but even after considering all of these, there is no perfect organization. Since if you will be starting from now on, say the final submission is in April or March end. So you have a lot of months in hand. So using this time, you can try out different organizations, you can learn new skills. You have a lot of time. Time is your main advantage if you start now, and you can utilize it well. Like you can try different organizations and all. You can try completely new languages that you've never done. So you'll just have to start and ultimately you'll just have to pick based on interest. Like these are things, secondary things to keep in mind, but the most important is you should have an interest in that organization and don't spend too much time. Like I remember I'd spent like 2 3 weeks selecting an organization only. Like that is really not that productive because ultimately from my experience, like it's not like I gained any additional knowledge. Finally, I thought, okay, मेरे को maths अच्छा लगता है, so let me go to Simpai. Like it was just as simple as that. Nothing like calculated stuff or like any like very big analysis that I'd done on each and every organization that which is the best to go to. So it was just that कि मेरे को maths अच्छा लगता है, तो कर लेता हूँ मैं try. So don't spend too much time selecting an organization, but yeah, keep this in mind. So now Abhijit would be taking you over, making your first contribution and ahead. So Abhijit.
Yeah. So once you select an organization to which you would like to get into as a GSOC student, you need to have a strong application. You need to demonstrate to the community that you can communicate clearly and concisely, as well as that you can write clean code. So to do that, probably the only way to do that is to make pull requests and contributions to the organization before the actual GSOC period starts. Next slide, please. So when you are about to make your first contribution, I would suggest that you start looking for issues that you can fix. Contributions can even be in the form of implementing new features, but implementing new features tends to be a more involved activity than fixing bugs usually. So I would suggest that you look for a bug an easy bug that you can fix. So many organizations, in order to encourage new contributors, what they do is that they have labels on their issues, such as maybe good first issue or help wanted or good for beginners. You can look out for these labels, issues with these labels, and try to pick up an issue which you can fix. When for your first issue, try to avoid issues which seem very involved, as well as those which you don't really have any idea about how to fix. So you will obviously need to do some debugging and reading of code. So when you pick up an issue, first you start doing that. You can use breakpoints or unit test, or maybe the simplest one maybe sprint debugging to diagnose the issue. When you are so when you pick up an issue, there's a good chance that you are going to get stuck on something because things are very new. So even before you ask for help, what you need to do is that, as Siddharth already mentioned, open source organizations tend to have really nice documentation. So there's a decent chance that a problem that you are stuck at is already documented in some troubleshooting section of the documentation. So try to find a solution in the documentation itself, or otherwise you can obviously Google for your problem and even come up with a solution. If that doesn't work, um, you can send a message to the communication platform which is used by that organization. It might be chat or email or some discussion forum. When you ask for help on the communication platform, you should remember to be polite, and you should also give background about the problem you are facing. For example, just saying that this command gives an error and then waiting for someone's reply does not help. You need to print if there are any error logs, you should paste them into the message, and you should also talk about what you did to diagnose the problem and what did not work. So that makes it easy for other volunteers and contributors to help you out. Avoid direct messaging or private messaging anyone. Rather ask for help on public forums. So what I guess most organizations would tend to follow this code of conduct, because when you direct message someone, that message remains between you and them, and then that doesn't help any other contributor in the future having the same issue. So generally post on public forums and be patient with replies. Next slide, please. When you actually have the fix written in your local branch, and you are about to contribute the patch, you send the pull request or merge request, whatever it is, to the repository. Before doing that, be sure to follow the coding style, or the coding style that is recommended by the organization. Usually many organizations have a dedicated section in their documentation for contributing to the code. You should go through that. If there are any preferred coding styles, for example, tabs over spaces or something like that, or if they follow any particular linters or code formatters, then you should run those formatters on your commits, and then open a pull request. You should also write tests for your new code. This is something many of the new contributors would have no idea about. Unit tests and integration tests are used to verify that the code that you have written is correct, and they are basically a bunch of assert statements which are made to run in every branch and in every commit that gets merged into the repository. So the tests make sure that the code isn't broken, or someone in the future changing your code doesn't alter the behavior to be something inconsistent. So you should write tests for your code too. How the code is tested depends very much on the organization. So you will certainly find something about writing tests in the contributions section of the documentation. So when you are ready, submit a pull request or a merge request to the repository. Now, as Siddharth mentioned earlier, your code won't directly get merged into the repository. It will first be reviewed by more experienced contributors. They will so when you have your stuff ready, you can request reviews from either the person who opened the issue or maybe some other active contributors. You should make sure that CI passes on your code. As I said earlier, the tests and all are run on every commit, on every pull request, and to make sure it is correct and not obviously wrong. So you should make sure that the tests pass on your code. You should also be really patient, because as we have discussed, most of the open source contributors are actually volunteers, and they might have other full-time commitments, and might be, for example, active only on weekends or evenings. So you need to be patient and respect that the project maintainers are busy. And usually, if you don't receive a reply within a few days, you should actually ping them again. But don't unnecessarily ping anyone or message anyone that you have something ready and it should be reviewed. Yeah. Now Vikram will talk about writing the proposal.
So the main part for getting selected for GSOC is submitting your proposal. So there is no test or an exam for you to get into GSOC. So your selection is entirely based upon your proposal. So your proposal is the most important thing. So it needs to be detailed, and you need to, show them that you have everything that they need. Like you need to show them that you're the best student or you're the best applicant there. So making a proposal involves a lot of things. So first of all would be your idea. So you need to choose, like your title should be on what you want to work on, or whatever uh, deliverable that you want to give. So my deliverable was that I wanted to put an undo command into the software I was working on. So there could be a lot of ideas already given by your organization, or you could come up with your own idea as well. And then you discuss with your mentor whether the organization wants it. So you discuss whether your idea will help them, or whatever your goal is, will it help the organization, is it required, etc. So once you're into this, so you start exploring the code on how you're going to implement it, and you start going through the code, trying to think of ways you can put it in it. And uh, you just need to have a clarity that you'll be doing it in this way. So you should know which files you'll be entering code into, how the algorithm which you're going to implement, etc. So usually how you start off is you identify issues in the area of your work. So whatever your area might be, there might be already existing issues. And when you tackle those issues, you start gaining some familiarity with the code that is already there. And only when you know what code is already there, you'll be able to make changes with it. So your proposal could either be implementing a new idea, or fixing some major bug, or a lot of bugs. That depends on what you choose and your organization's interests. Then your proposal includes every single detail that you know and that you would like your mentor to know. So you have to prove to your mentor that you have an idea of what you want to do, and you'll be able to do it within the timeline. You also give your you also write in your proposal an approximate timeline of your whole summer, what you'll be doing week by week, and you also mention what deliverables you want to give. So you mention a few checkpoints that you would want to hit, and your final goal. That's it. Next slide. So the overall roadmap for GSOC is, first you select your organization, obviously, and then you start contributing. So your first PR might be the hardest PR that you'll make. So there is a lot of issue in it, that when you're seeing the code for the first time, it's a big code base and it's quite complicated. But once you submit your first PR, you are usually more confident that you start understanding the code and you keep contributing. So you be consistent and you keep making new PRs, exploring the code, etc. And as you understand the code, you'll also be building trust within the community. So the people in the community will start to notice you that, yeah, this guy is consistent, he's making a lot of PRs, he's giving good code, etc. And as you progress, then you will also get your own ideas, or you understand what your organization needs. So according to that, you can base your proposal, and then you start making a proposal, and finally you get it reviewed. Next slide. So the approximate timeline, an approximate ideal timeline is, you start choosing your organizations right away within October itself, and then you start contributing. So November and December, you can make PRs, explore the code, different parts of it. So usually every organization will have a huge code base, and they might be highly unrelated as well, few parts. So you try to make PRs in different parts of it and get to know the code and where your interest lies within the organization. From January, you can start thinking of ideas on what you want to do, discuss with people in the community how you are going to do it, how useful it is, etc. In February, I would say that you should fix on what you really want to do and make relevant contributions. And from February end, you start making your proposal. And proposal is not a small thing. So usually it lasts from 20 pages to 40 pages. So you mention every detail, you have to show them that you deserve it, like you can do it rather. Because proposal is the only thing that the organization has to judge you. They don't know anything else about you or your previous PRs that you made. So these are the only two things that they can judge you upon, and the proposal will have the highest impact. So you should devote a significant amount of time to making your proposal look good and make it have all the details. And then in March, I think mid of March, the portal opens, mid of March to end of March. And once the portal opens, ideally you should already be ready with your proposal to be reviewed. So once you submit the proposal, your mentor can review it and he can suggest you changes and whatever you can do better. And then during the submission period, you can make the required changes, and in mid-April, there is the submission deadline. And once you submit the proposal, you just have to wait, and results are usually out by mid-May. And that's it. I'm happy you saw it. Yeah, any questions? When do you get a mentor? So officially, you get a mentor for your GSOC after you're selected. But initially as well, you can interact with people in the community and they'll help you. Yeah, proposal is a PDF or a Word document. The proposal part. Which part should we go through again? Part this roadmap.
Yeah. So in the main file, your proposal is purely reviewed by the mentors of the organization. Google has no part to do with like selecting you at all, selecting the people based on the proposals. So all of the liberty is with the organizations themselves.
So what is not clear about the proposals? Uh, so a proposal has a lot of things. So in general, your proposal will initially start off with who you are, what you've previously done, etc. And next you start off with what knowledge you have about the topic. So let's say you want to implement an algorithm. Let's say it's regarding networks. So you try to explain the theory on what you know about networks and how you're going to implement whatever you're planning to. Then next you start explaining in your proposal how you want to implement it. So your entire change or new feature that you want to put in might have a lot of changes to make. So there might be different parts of the code that you'll have to edit and different algorithms that you might want to put in. So you explain in detail on how the algorithm works or how you want to implement it into the code. So I'll just give you my case. For example, an undo. So an undo can be done in a lot of ways. So you store a initial version and then you store what changes have occurred, or you store your present version and you can go back on what changes have occurred. And there is a lot of other algorithms as well to implement an undo. Okay, so in my proposal, I had compared all the approaches that were possible, and I showed that why I was choosing this approach and why I was going to implement it and how I was going to implement it. I will be making changes in these files and how I would go about doing it. And then at the end of the proposal, you usually have a timeline that in week 1, I'll be creating a dummy undo command that does nothing. In week 2, I'll start implementing undo for a few changes. In week 3, I'll implement a multiple undo, etc. So you explain in detail what you're going to do for the 10 weeks. You allot time for debugging, you allot time for testing, etc. I hope this is clear enough. Yeah, I think this question on how to navigate the code base before actually contributing, you usually start off after you find the issue. So whenever there is a newcomer issue and you message in the issues or you ask people in the community on how to get started with it, they usually guide you to some extent. Ki, this is the file in which you'll have to make a change, etc. So usually you directly go into that file and you start exploring. So you go into out, like you directly go to the file that you want to edit, which mostly they're going to tell you or they're going to guide you to, and then you start exploring on what it is actually doing. Yeah, there is no specified way, I would say, in how to navigate the code base before actually contributing. You rather start off with an issue and then go about it.
You can try using the grep command or
Yeah.
global search options in some of the modern text editors to find which file is relevant. I don't think it's a good idea to ask which file to edit to the community members. It's fine when you are new, but usually as you gain more experience, you will be searching keywords and stuff by yourself.
Yeah, like if you're trying to ask the community members, try to focus on asking how you can get it, how you can get the information, not on getting the information itself, because ultimately you'll have to learn it yourself. So yeah, like try to ask them about the method rather than asking them to do it for you.
There is a question in the chat that do we have to get assigned to the issue through the chat forum?
So it depends on the organization completely. Many organizations follow this that you have to get assigned to an issue, but my organization does not assign issues to anyone. So you'll get to know like when you go through the organization's issues, like if you can see they're assigned to people, then yeah, you'll have to get it assigned. Else anyone can work on it. And yeah, again, like I shared my proposal, but that is mainly for like afterwards, like if you want and all. Again, like even I had tried to go through some sample proposals at the start, like when I was trying to choose an organization, but I couldn't understand like even a single one of them. I'd gone through so many, and like I knew some coding already, still I couldn't understand even a single one of them. So like you'll just get intimidated and not be able to understand the specifics. So just focus on whatever, focus on contributing and selecting an organization you have an interest in.
There is another question related to learning the full language, and I guess this is a common question that many of us must have. That we have limited knowledge, basic knowledge about programming or something. So how do we make contributions to the state-of-the-art projects? Like how are our contributions even worth that?
Okay, so I'll start off with this, then I guess others can chip in. So firstly, like the biggest difference is like in GSOC versus anything, like one mentality that you'll have to change is like it's not an exam or something. Like so people generally are afraid to ask doubts or like approach the mentors who will be reviewing your proposal and all, and even Googling. So like all of this is allowed. Like when you're contributing to an organization, you can Google anything you don't know. Like if you don't remember the syntax, it's fine. You can Google it. Like even I don't remember a lot of Python and C++ syntax. If you need it at any time, you can just Google it. But knowing one language helps you. Like, मतलब if you know one language, you know कि like मतलब for loop कैसे लिखते हैं. You should know like the basics and all. So you know what to Google. But you can like Google anytime. You can ask the contributors for help, and also you don't really need to know the full language at all. Like yeah, like that level is not required. And again, like you can submit a pull request, the people will review it. If you submitted a very if you've done a very naive implementation, they'll tell you that okay, I think that this method would be working better, can you try this method? So they'll be helping you out at every stage. Vikram, Abhijit, anything to add?
Yeah, like if it helps you feel better, I had only CS1 knowledge before I started contributing. I just knew the basic C++ that was taught in the course. I knew nothing else, and I think I managed it pretty well. So you just need to start. You shouldn't feel scared that you wouldn't know or you wouldn't understand. It is very overwhelming at the beginning, you see it looks to you as if you'll not get anything and it's very complicated, but I think you should just get started and on the way you'll figure it out.
So regarding any framework or tool or language, there is almost an infinite pool of knowledge that exists out there, and I think you are never going to feel confident that okay, I have now become a pro in this, and I will hence start contributing. So you should focus on learning on the go, and yeah, that's it.
Strength of a community is difficult to say. Like some aspects that you can see, like I said, there is a public chat, so you can go to the chat around April or March and see like how many people were messaging there. So like if you go to some big organizations like CERN is there, you'll see like 10, 15 people message every day in January month itself. Like that's the insane amount in the big organizations. In my organization, it was a medium size, so ultimately there were 15 or so serious people who applied with like taking review for the proposal and all. But like last day पे बहुत लोग ऐसे ही डाल देते proposal for like luck and all. So ultimately there were 40 proposals, but like मतलब वो सब इतने serious भी नहीं थे. So हाँ, and for smaller organizations you will have like 5, 6 people applying or like even lesser sometimes. So generally yeah, like I'd say for smaller people, smaller organizations, 5, 6 people applying. Medium के लिए 20 to 30 and large के लिए like 100 plus ish. Yeah, ऐसा.
And the number of students getting selected also vary across organizations then.
Yeah, it depends on how many slots the organization gets from Google. So the organization can ask for a number of slots and Google usually gives them the ideal number that they can give according to their constraints. So it can vary from 20 slots to my organization having only 2 slots.
Yeah, officially they ask for 175 hours, but that is again a rough estimate. Like the actual time you give would vary a lot. You can give far lesser time. You might end up giving far lesser time or giving far more time. Not far more time. You won't be giving too much more time. But yeah, like the time given can vary.
It depends on what you have proposed to do. So if you propose a lot more on your deliverables, then you'll have to work harder. Whereas if you propose a smaller goal, then you might actually be committing for a much lesser time. Like I think on a popular versus not popular organization, it's obviously the difference of telling people that you work for Python or you work for an unknown organization. Like I don't know exactly if like we can quantify the difference, but obviously if you work for a more popular organization, it feels better to tell or feels better to write it on your resume like GSOC in Django or GSOC in a relatively unknown organization. And another difference would be ease of selection. So if it's a really popular organization, a lot of people would be applying, and if it's a not so popular organization, few people will be applying. So it's a balance, it's a trade-off. Like, like exactly though, I don't think anyone can quantify the difference between a popular and a not so popular one. So in smaller organizations, mine was a very small organization and help was actually, I think, more easily available than in a larger organization. So in a small organization, there are few people to help, but there are few people asking for help as well. So in my organization, I was the only one who started contributing from November. So everyone was there to help me. Yeah. But it might also happen that in a small organization there are just 1, 2 active contributors. So if they go on holiday or they are missing in action, then it is very tough to find help because there's not a lot of people available.
Yeah, like I've also seen a couple of small organizations. Generally, they are very helpful and like a very nice community. Like they help you individually out, like often. And So yeah, like this is what I've seen from smaller organizations. But yeah, like again, like if one or two main people go out, then you would be sort of stuck because again, like voluntary है, उनको कुछ काम आ सकता है, so that time you'll be stuck. But हाँ, and like because in bigger organizations they get so many doubts per day, they can't just sit and like if you ask a very generic doubt, like I don't know how to approach this issue, like I don't know how to solve this issue, just tell me. So they won't be able to tell this to each and everyone. If you ask a very specific thing, ki, okay, I was trying to solve this issue. In this step, I don't understand this thing. Then only they can help you. So, हाँ.
Another thing that many of us would like, it would be great if you could share your experience. Matlab, from when did you start? How did you choose your organization? And how did you start making your contributions?
I think Abhijit started earliest. तो ही बता दे.
I had started in, I think, the start of September in last year, and I was pretty, things went on pretty slowly till December or so. And after that, I made a couple of significant contributions to the project. As I said, I work for Zulip, and it I think it might be considered as a large organization because they usually accept 15 plus students, and it definitely helped to start early and to get a sense of the project and how the community works. And the coding period was pretty similar to the application period. I had mentioned a bunch of issues on my proposal related to the notifications area. For some context, Zulip is a chat application which is an open source competitor to Slack or other chat applications like Microsoft Teams. So I had worked on the notifications area of the project, and it was a great experience. I worked for around 3 to 4 hours a day for the 10-week long coding period, and yeah, that's it.
Okay. So for me, I finalized my organization just before NSEMS, I think. And after that, I started like firstly, first week of winter vacation, I just spent doing time pass. So I started around December 7th, like to look for actually issues to solve and all, good first issues. And after that, like it took me about 1 week to like 1 or 2 weeks to get my first pull request open. And then after that, it took like 1 month to get that merged. Although it was a very easy issue, I'll show that to you after this, as someone asked. So but huh, and after that, like I started contributing. So in December, I think I had made 2, 3 pull requests, easy ones only, like very easy to fix ones. Then from that point onwards, January and February, I started contributing a lot because like I was enjoying it a lot and I was getting some free time. So I started enjoying it a lot and like it. So because of that, I spent a lot of time open many pull requests and all. And after that, and then like again, I started early on the proposal just after midsems in February and spent like a lot of time on that. But yeah, like I got to learn like a lot about maths and development and all. Like it was a really unique experience. Like although like I already knew some coding from like being in team AUV, but like this was a very completely different experience and like it gave a really nice. It was a really nice thing overall. Although one thing was like the majority of my learning was during the pre-application period. So even if you don't get into GSOC, like it's a really nice learning thing if you contribute seriously from now. Like because in GSOC ultimately I just had to implement it, and since I'd already implemented some projects, not full-scale projects, some smaller projects earlier, so I didn't get to learn too much in that uh, comparatively. But yeah, like even that period was great, like learning to work in deadlines, writing weekly blog posts about my work, and effectively communicating and all. So yeah, like it was a really great experience.
So I started searching for organizations at the start of October, I think, and the whole month of October I was trying to search for an organization. I tried to compile a lot of download their code base and try to compile it, but I failed in a lot of organizations. At the end, I realized that I just knew C++, so I should focus on an organization that worked only in C++. And since I'm also in mechanical engineering and I have some experience with CADing, so I thought I should take up BRL CAD since it is a CADing organization. I think at the end of October or something, I made my first pull request, and after that I became dormant. Like after NSEMs and in the winter vacation, I did not do much. But from January, I started seriously contributing from mid-January, etc. First, I chose a different topic for parallelization of ray tracing, something like that. But it was quite complex, and so I had to give that up. And I then later on, I went on to choose an undo to implement an undo command. So most of as Siddharth mentioned, most of the learning actually happens when you make the proposal itself. So trying to understand the code and trying to figure out what you have to do during GSOC is the biggest learning thing. During the GSOC period, you're mostly implementing what you've already written in your proposal. So everything is already detailed there. You're just it's like a manual, and you're just implementing whatever you've already written, and and the code is little easier, and the main learning is before GSOC. And it was a great experience anyways. Like I learned a lot from where I started and by the end of GSOC.
Okay, so I think there are two questions now. One was like about how the first like easy issues look like, and one was about like the GNU organization, how to start with that. So firstly, like this was my first ever pull request. You can see it started December 18 and merged much later. So this was the issue. It was easy to fix. So what like malab, I won't be going over the issue itself, but here you can see like this person had already proposed the fix itself. So like if you open this link, um, hopefully this works, but ठीक है. अच्छा just का अलग कर दिया क्या कुछ. Okay, so basically over here written like okay खुल गया. So like here you can see like this is a GitHub diff. So diff you can actually just apply this code as it is to your code base, and like using this file you can directly apply these changes. So you can see like this guy has already written the entire code. So I literally just have to open a pull request and test it out. So I literally did just that. Like I applied the diff, like it was like a one-line command to apply that. Still, it took me so long. Like you can see, like all the code I already had with me. And if I just show you, like I had commented on December 10. I opened this on 18th. So you can see, like it took me still so long, even though I had the entire like code written for me. So that was like an easy to fix thing, because like I didn't have to know about the code base as such. I had to like I had the entire code with me. I just had to apply it and go around with that. So here was another easy to fix thing. Here like there was this original example which was already fixed in a previous commit. So yeah, so in this all I had to do was add a test case. Like this was already fixed by someone else, but the issue wasn't closed. Like Abhijit had mentioned, like you have to add test cases for issues solved. So like the same thing doesn't get repeated again. So all I had to do was like copy all of this code and write it into a test function. So that is all I did here. Like you can see like I just made a test function. Literally all the code that is available here, I just wrote this, and that was it. Like I opened the pull request. So yeah, you can see like easy to fix issues are like generally like this. Like either they've given you the entire solution or something like that. So like, yeah, like they don't require a lot of in-depth understanding of the code base. And yeah, so hope that gave you an idea. Else you can come back to it. So someone asked like what to look for in an organization. So for example, this was the example. This was the example given. So firstly, like you can go to the website. Uh, Over here you'll see. Okay, I'll let it load. So here you can see like firstly like this is the website. So here you can see the sources. So here you can see the source is generally like the Git source itself, and development may contributing. Like this is like why contributing and all also, but like contributing. So this is an important link and all. So here you can see like, so this is the first link I opened from like Git. So like the source code. So you can browse our Git history online or like this. So yeah, so over here, yeah, like generally, so like since GNU, GCC is like a very older organization and like a very larger organization and all of that. So like they have a generally different thing. But here you can see like the most of the history of the code base itself. For cloning, you can see like here they have given the command. So like using this, you can have the code base onto your device. And after that, you can start going through the code base and all. Okay. And like here you can see like every instruction is given, like how like some common issues like branches, tags, like the word trees, like all of this. They've given like in very detail. You can see like so much they've written. So yeah, so like you through this you can see, and then after that contributing guide. So legal standards and all like licenses there, but you can see like all should follow the coding standards and all that. So you can look at this page that would have the coding standards. Then writing test case, you can use simulators. Like you can basically see like sorry, so you can basically see, so here you can see like the coding standards for each and everything. Sorry, in each in formats. So you can look, you can go through that. So you can basically look at like, so they have it in very detail, like, and even email and all. Like yeah, so um, so you can see like they have a, so since GNU is like a very older organization and like very developed and all that. So GNU and Linux generally you'll see like some, so these are a little more complicated than general organizations because their Git is generally just a clone of the code. For submitting patches, you have to either like email them or send an yeah, like do that to send a patch. So these are a little more complicated, but you can still see like the entire process is well documented on the website. And there are like other things also, matlab, so yeah, basically through this you can go through it. Um, Open projects, you can see like how to fix them up. Then known bugs, you can see like known bugs and the bug tracker. So like through these you can find out things you want to solve. So like generally the website has all of this because open source organizations only work because they have contributors now. So like it's a very key part of every organization that they have a contributing section. So yeah, so here you can also, हाँ मतलब देख सकते हो in detail बाद में. But हाँ, like hopefully that gave you an idea. And okay. I think there is one unanswered question, like if they if how do we choose in October or November if the companies are released later? Firstly, not companies. Okay, हाँ मतलब Vikram answered that actually. But हाँ, like generally you can see the stats and all for the previous year. Like sometime you can go to the wiki and see that they've been coming from 2007, which is almost the start of GSOC. So there is a very high chance that they'll apply again and they'll also get selected again because Google also has a good history with them. But then there are also organizations that come for like the first time, so it is not guaranteed. Or so they may or may not come again. Then and again, just to reiterate, it's never 100% guarantee. Like for example, Mozilla is a big organization. They've been coming for many years, but they did not come this year in 2021 because there was some internal admin dispute. So due to that, so it's not, so it's never 100%, but yeah, like there is, you can have a good guarantee.
Also, there's a question in the chat. If you could just give us a quick guide about how to use the GSOC website, how to navigate through it.
Sure. So like, okay. So okay, so I'll go over the different tabs roughly. So about तो यही है like what GSOC is and all, like what they want to do. Here the past projects has the entire archive. So like so like which organizations took part in previous years. You can see the list of organizations for every year. So these are things you can go through like to see if an organization you're interested in has been coming consistently or not. So here you can check that out in detail. Uh, then organizations page ये तो दिखाया था cool. How it works will have like so yeah, again like officially you just have to apply, you just have to give a proposal. Here is the full timeline, so you can see like organizations themselves have to apply. They can do by February 20th. Then it's announced around March 10, and some 2 or 3 weeks after that you can start the application. So you should have your ideally your proposal ready like 1 week before this. So so that like you can get enough time to get it reviewed and all. So I had mine ready by mid-March and I had already started sending it for review. And like after review, like there were like a lot of changes. Like it was almost completely rewritten. So and so like this is overall the timeline. Help मतलब help section FAQ वगैरह है. And like other things like that. Projects is a list of all projects selected this year. So somehow my project is the first one that's up there. Don't know why, but so here you can see like the full list of projects like that are here. So मतलब you can view by organization like or anything. मतलब बहुत तरीके से देख सकते हो. Like here also you can see the list of projects selected. So here there is an abstract brief of the this, and then there's the code submission link. These are available after submitting, but and ठीक है. So that's mainly about it. मतलब you won't be visiting this too many times after you pick an organization, but except when you have to apply, that time you'll visit a lot. But that's about visiting this. The website. Cool.
So there is a question that if you keep contributing and the organization doesn't come in GSOC, then are all the efforts in vain? So definitely not. You have if you seriously contribute, then hopefully you have learned a lot through the process itself, and that's definitely not that's definitely useful. And if you do make significant contributions, then you can mention that in your experience and or your resume. For example, during when I had applied to Zulip, I had before the GSOC procedure started, I had contributed one major feature to the application, and in one of their major releases, it was even highlighted. So even if I did not do GSOC later on, I definitely had that much of experience, and I could write it on my resume. But yes, if you are asking the question solely from the point of view of GSOC, then yeah, maybe that it is in vain.
मतलब as such it is, but like there are things you can do to help you out in that situation. So you'll only be able to come to know like when the organizations are announced. So maybe you can look for organizations that have come for the first time. So over there you'll be on a level playing field with everyone because no one has been contributing there from before. It's the first time, so no one knew they'll come. So you can choose them, and you can focus solely on writing the proposal. You can say, I'm very confident that I can learn the entire workflow and all because I've already been contributing from so many months to this organization. So I know how open source works. I know how to like make a pull request and all. I'm clear with the basics. So I'm sure I can get up to speed with that fast. And so like you can leverage it in that way. Yeah, so like you can definitely mention it in your other proposals also that I was contributing to this organization so much. I've seen people do that also.
Uh, Also, I have an announcement from WNCC side. So we'll be having an event related to open source that will be going on throughout the October. So there will be different projects, and you can contribute and issue pull requests, just like the Google Summer of Code and other normally open source projects were. So the announcements will be coming up on the Discord server, and all the communication will happen there. So you can join it. The link will be on the website, and we'll create a separate channel for open source where you can ask all your doubts regarding this Hacktoberfest, Google Summer of Code, and anything else. And yeah. So if there are no other questions, I think we can wrap it up right now. Uh, yeah, the Discord channel link will be in on the website.
Rohit, I didn't get your question. Can you elaborate a bit?
I think he was talking about the WNCC initiative, like which was for the open source thing, the HelloFoss one, probably.
Okay, so Hacktoberfest is an event distinct from the GSOC. It's to encourage first-time contributors to get involved with open source communities. And Hacktoberfest does not have, as far as I know, does not have any set of organizations that you contribute to. Any public any contribution to a public repository counts, and you have to make at least 4 contributions, four, I think, good contributions. I mean, not any spammy contribution. If you make 4 or more contributions to any public repository, then you get a T-shirt and swags, and you can call yourself as a Hacktoberfest participant. So HelloFoss is about you can contribute to HelloFoss repositories. I think last year they had a chat application and then machine learning based repository too. So you can check those out, and if you make 4 or more pull requests and they get merged and accepted, or they don't get closed before the end of October, they will count towards the 4 contributions.
Yes, and there will also be other perks if you contribute. So just join the Discord channel so keep in touch with all the announcements. And yeah, so I think we can wrap up this session now. So thank you, Abhijit, Vikram, and Siddharth. It was really insightful, and we got to know a lot. So thank you so much for joining, and thank
No
you everyone
problem.
for joining
Yeah.
this session.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were
If
saying
anyone
something?
has doubts, feel free to ping me. Like if anyone has doubts, like feel free to ping me on Facebook or WhatsApp and all. But no, yeah.
Yeah, you can even contact on the Discord server.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining.